The imperial throne room trembled, not from any quake, but from the sheer silence that followed the crack of shattered bone. Commander Reyes Valoric stood over the twitching corpse of the assassin, blood dripping from his knuckles, the alien's twisted arms still clenched in his grip. The grand nobles of the Zelthar court recoiled, their jeweled eyes wide with something they rarely felt: fear. Reyes turned slowly, eyes locking with the Emperor, calm as ever. "You're welcome," he muttered, voice like gravel. Behind him, High Advisor Kesseth whispered to no one in particular. "And this beast guards our Emperor?" No one answered. "Not yet." The throne room of Velcaris Prime shimmered like a crystal caught in a star's light. Every surface, walls, pillars, even the floor, was a prism, refracting hues unknown to any human eye. Alien nobility stood motionless, their elongated forms wrapped in ceremonial garb that pulsed faintly with bioluminescence. They didn't breathe as humans did, they didn't blink. To them, stillness was strength. And yet, standing beside the throne, hulking, armored, and very much alive, was Commander Reyes Valoric, a human among gods. He scanned the room, eyes sharp beneath a heavy brow, hand never straying far from the blade at his hip. His armor, matte black and scarred from a dozen wars, looked almost primitive beside the flowing silks and energy-weaved robes of the court. He didn't care. He wasn't there to impress. The Emperor sat upon his high seat, towering above the gathered nobles, eyes closed in silent thought as the latest envoy spoke. "From the Valeth clusters," the delegate crooned, voice slithering, "we present this gift, a crystal heart from the dying star of Celian. Let it pulse in time with your Majesty's will, as we do." A low murmur passed through the court. Flattery. Reyes remained silent, eyes tracking every movement. Then something shifted. The servant carrying the star crystal stepped forward, too quickly, too stiffly. Reyes' gut tightened. He moved. In a blur, the servant lunged, arms snapping outward, metal gleaming in hand, a blade aimed straight at the Emperor's throat. Reyes was faster. He crossed the polished floor in 2 strides, caught the assassin's wrist mid-air, and twisted. Bones cracked, the knife clattered. A sharp gasp echoed, but Reyes didn't stop. He drove his fist into the attacker's jaw, sending the alien sprawling. Blood, thick and green, splattered across the throne steps. Silence. The court froze, horrified. Reyes stood over the fallen figure, breathing steady, eyes like ice. He grabbed the assassin by the collar, yanked him up. "Who sent you?" His voice was low, a growl. The assassin hissed, lips peeling back to reveal needle-like teeth. "The Emperor weakens. You are the rot." Reyes slammed him down, hard enough to rattle the floor. "Wrong answer." The Emperor rose slowly, regal, untouched. His gaze swept over the stunned court before falling on Reyes. No anger. Just a nod. "You saved me again, Commander." Reyes released the assassin, letting him slump unconscious. He turned to face the gathering. "Someone let this thing through security," he said, eyes sweeping the nobles. "And I will find out who." The nobles recoiled as if slapped. Whispers erupted like a storm. From the edge of the dais, Lord Kesseth stepped forward. Tall, elegant, his pale skin shimmered faintly in the light. His eyes, black voids, rested on Reyes with open disdain. "A demonstration of efficiency, no doubt," Kesseth said, voice smooth as glass. "Though some might say such brutality is unbecoming in the Emperor's hall." Reyes didn't flinch. "You want me to apologize for saving his life?" Kesseth smiled cold. "I only suggest that such methods belong on battlefields, not among the refined." The Emperor raised a hand. Silence returned. "This court exists because of strength," he said. "Let none forget that." His gaze lingered on Kesseth. "Refinement without power is dust waiting for wind." Kesseth bowed slightly, but the tension in his shoulders didn't go unnoticed. Reyes glanced down at the assassin. Still breathing barely. "I want him interrogated. Privately." He looked to the Emperor. "Permission?" The Emperor nodded once. Later, deep in the bowels of the palace, Reyes stood in a narrow room lit by a single overhead beam. The walls were lined with dull metal, designed for silence. The assassin sat chained, head slumped forward. Reyes approached slowly, pulling a chair across the floor with a deliberate scrape. He sat, resting his elbows on his knees. "You've got one chance. Talk." The assassin looked up, eyes unfocused. A faint smile curled on his lips. "It won't matter. The seed is planted." Reyes frowned. "What seed?" A spasm shook the assassin's body. His veins darkened, skin blistered. "Damn it!" Reyes lunged forward, grabbing him by the shoulders. "Who gave you the order?" But it was too late. Foam bubbled from the alien's mouth, and his body went still. Reyes stood, cursing under his breath. Poison. Someone had made sure the assassin couldn't speak. The door opened behind him. A junior officer entered, looking pale. "Commander, the court is requesting your presence." "Lord Kessis says?" "Kessis says a lot." Reyes walked past him. "Tell the Emperor we need to talk. Alone." As he climbed the winding corridors back toward the throne room, Reyes felt it, the walls themselves watching, the weight of 1,000 eyes pressing in. He was alone here, and they wanted him gone. But he wasn't leaving. Not until he found out who was pulling the strings, and broke their hands. The court's summons came with no delay. By the time Reyes returned to the Great Hall, the nobles were already assembled, arranged in a half-circle before the Emperor's dais. The air was colder now, less vibrant. The silence was no longer respect, it was judgment. The Emperor sat, motionless, his hands folded. He looked weary, older somehow, though he hadn't aged a day in the years Reyes had known him. Kessis stood at the center, draped in violet robes, speaking with slow precision. "It is not a question of loyalty, Majesty. It is a matter of propriety. The presence of this human among us has disturbed the balance. Our traditions must be honored." Reyes walked in, uninvited, eyes hard. "If your traditions allow assassins into the throne room, maybe it's time they were disturbed." A ripple of unease ran through the nobles. The Emperor's eyes flicked to Reyes but gave no command. Kessis turned, smile thin. "Commander Valoric, how fortunate you've joined us. We were just discussing how best to ensure the continued safety of His Majesty. Naturally, the court desires a demonstration of your abilities. Transparency breeds trust. Call it what it is," Reyes said. "You want a spectacle. Fine." The Emperor raised a hand. "Enough. Let the trial be conducted. 3 challengers, as dictated by ancient law. If Commander Valoric prevails, his place will not be questioned again." "And if I fall?" Reyes asked, knowing the answer. "Then tradition is satisfied," Kessis replied, eyes gleaming. The arena was beneath the palace, carved into the bedrock of Velcaris. It was circular, wide, and utterly silent, its walls absorbing every sound. Nobles filled the balconies above, peering down, eager for blood. Reyes stood alone on the stone floor, armor light, blade in hand. Across from him, the first challenger entered, a hulking brute from the Voker species, skin plated like iron, eyes burning with rage. A gong sounded. The Voker charged, hammer swinging. Reyes dodged, narrowly, the weapon slamming into the floor with enough force to shatter stone. He countered with a swift strike to the knee, finding a gap in the armor. The giant stumbled. No hesitation. Reyes closed in, driving his blade up through the beast's throat. The crowd gasped. The Voker fell. First blood. The second came swiftly. A lithe, four-armed fighter from the Shuren worlds, twin blades in each hand. She moved like water, flowing, circling. Reyes stayed low, watching, waiting. She attacked in a blur, slashes aimed to disarm, not kill. Testing him. Reyes blocked high, ducked low, twisted free. He saw her rhythm, the pattern behind her speed. He feinted left, drew her in, and struck, a hard elbow to the ribs, breaking her flow. One blade dropped. Reyes caught it midair, turned it, and drove it into her side. She hissed, stumbled, fell. 2 down. The third was different. A telepath. Thin, almost fragile looking, but eyes that burned with power. No weapon in hand, just a cold, knowing smile. As the gong sounded, Reyes felt the pressure, like a vice tightening around his skull. You can't win, the thought whispered, foreign, invasive. He gritted his teeth, stepped forward. You are out of place. A beast in a palace. His vision blurred. He staggered. Dropped the blade. Bow. It ends here. Reyes dropped to one knee, heart pounding. The telepath raised a hand, sure of victory. But Reyes wasn't done. With a roar, he surged forward, breaking the mental grip, blade flashing. The telepath's eyes widened, too slow to react. Steel met flesh. The telepath crumpled. Silence. Reyes stood, chest heaving, blood dripping from his hands. Above, the court watched, stunned. The Emperor rose slowly. It is done. Commander Valoric has proven his place. No cheers. Just silence, heavy and uncomfortable. Kessis stepped forward, face unreadable. A most illuminating display. Perhaps there is value in chaos, after all. Reyes locked eyes with him. You haven't seen chaos yet. Later, in the privacy of his quarters, Reyes sat alone, replaying every strike, every voice that tried to tear him down. A soft chime broke the silence. A message. A low-ranking attendant's voice, nervous. Commander. I have information. About the assassin. About Kessis. Reyes straightened. Where? Lower levels. Now. Reyes grabbed his blade. He was done playing their games. Now, he was hunting. The underlevels of Valkyris Prime weren't on any map. Reyes moved through the dim, narrow corridors, the polished splendor of the palace replaced by exposed metal and flickering lights. These halls weren't meant to be seen. They existed for things better hidden, things the court pretended didn't exist. The attendant had given him directions, then vanished. Reyes didn't expect to see him again. At the end of the passage, a heavy door waited, half open, the edges lined with dust. He pushed through, hand on his blade, every sense alive. The room beyond was cold, unnaturally so. Walls lined with alien glyphs pulsed faintly, casting eerie shadows. In the center, a large table held strange devices, shapes twisting, wires trailing into the floor. And on the table, glowing softly, was a familiar symbol. The mark he'd seen before. The Mindbird seal. Reyes stepped closer, eyes narrowing. A data slate rested beside the device, filled with notes. Schematics, mind control patterns, references to psionic frequencies tuned to the Emperor's signature. This wasn't just about him. It was a plan to take the throne, quietly, cleanly. A sound behind him. Reyes spun, blade drawn. Too late. A surge of energy slammed into his chest, throwing him across the room. He hit the wall hard, vision swimming. Footsteps. Kessis stepped into view, calm, composed. I had hoped you wouldn't find this. But humans are stubborn. Reyes struggled to his feet, breath ragged. You've been planning this for years. Kessis tilted his head. Decades. The Emperor grows weak. His mind is clouded by sentiment. I offer clarity. You call this clarity? Reyes gestured to the device, forcing his legs steady. You'd rip his mind apart. Kessis smiled. No, I would guide it. As it should be. You, on the other hand. You're chaos. Uncontrolled. Dangerous. Reyes moved, slow, deliberate. Funny. That chaos just found your secret. A flick of Kessith's hand, and the room trembled. The device hummed louder, the glyphs flaring bright. You won't leave here, Commander. Reyes lunged, but Kessith vanished into shadows. The door slammed shut. Pain pulsed through Reyes' chest, but he pushed it aside. He moved to the table, eyes scanning the device. No time to think, just act. He pulled the wires free, sparks flying. The hum turned to a shriek, the symbols flickering. A timer activated, alien numbers counting down. A trap. Of course. He grabbed the data slate, tucked it into his belt, and scanned the room for an exit. The far wall. A service hatch, barely wide enough, but it would do. The timer hit 0. Reyes dived through, flames chasing his heels as the lab exploded, the force throwing him into darkness. He woke to silence, dust thick in the air. His body screamed, but nothing felt broken. He climbed to his feet, every muscle aching, and stumbled toward the light. Back in the palace, hours later, Reyes stood before the Emperor. The court was absent. This was private. "You were right," Reyes said, tossing the scorched data slate onto the table. "Keseth is planning to take everything." The Emperor picked up the slate, eyes scanning the symbols. His face remained unreadable. "He'll deny it," the Emperor said quietly. "He tried to kill me." The Emperor looked up. "And yet you live." "Not for lack of effort." A long silence stretched between them. "You want me to act?" the Emperor said. "I want you to survive." The Emperor nodded slowly. "Then give me proof." "Proof they cannot ignore." Reyes clenched his fists. "You already have it." "No. I need witnesses." Reyes turned, heading for the door. "Then I'll find them." Outside the chamber, the halls felt colder. The court knew something had shifted. Whispers followed him like ghosts. Reyes didn't care. He had a name, a target, and no patience left for politics. This wasn't about survival anymore. It was war. Reyes didn't sleep. Sleep was for those who had the luxury of trust. Trust in walls, in guards, in systems. He had none of that. Not here. Not now. The corridors of Velcaris felt smaller tonight. Tighter. Like the palace itself knew what was coming. He walked them with purpose, but the shadows felt heavier, more watchful. Every turn could be a blade, every whisper a name spoken too loud. He had the data slate, sure. He'd handed it over. The Emperor wanted more. Wanted something irrefutable. Witnesses. But Reyes wasn't looking for witnesses anymore. He was looking for the end. The chamber was hidden beneath the Hall of Voices, where the court's oldest records were kept. Reyes moved silently through the vast archive, rows of ancient texts towering around him. This wasn't a place for warriors, but tonight, war had come here. At the center of the hall stood 3 figures. Hooded, silent, their backs to him. He didn't announce himself. He stepped closer, blade in hand. "You always were direct," came Keseth's voice, smooth, as if greeting an old friend. The other figures turned. Mind brood agents. Their eyes glowed faintly, their bodies stiff, wrong. "You're bold," Reyes said. "I'll give you that. Boldness is survival," Keseth replied. "Something your kind understands, though crudely. Crude's kept me alive. Can't say the same for your followers." Keseth's smile didn't waver. "You think killing me stops this?" "I know it does." The agents moved first, closing in without a sound. Reyes didn't hesitate. The first fell to a clean strike across the throat. The second lashed out with a surge of psionic force, but Reyes pushed through it, driving his shoulder into the attacker, crushing bone against stone. The third tried to retreat, hand raised, mind reaching. Reyes threw his blade, watched it spin once, twice, and bury itself deep. Silence again. Only Keseth remained unfazed. "You're predictable," Keseth said, stepping back, hands still at his sides. "Violence is all you know." "No," Reyes said, retrieving his blade. "It's just what I'm best at." Keseth raised one hand. The air thickened, a low hum building, pressure behind Reyes' eyes. "You've survived because I allowed it," Keseth whispered. "You've fought animals, soldiers, but not this." Reyes staggered, the weight in his mind growing. His vision flickered, ground tilting. "I can make you kneel," Keseth said, stepping closer. "I can peel away your thoughts, your rage, until nothing remains but silence." Reyes dropped to one knee, breath sharp, sweat beading. "You don't belong here," Keseth murmured. "You're a mistake." The hum deepened, pain spiking behind Reyes' eyes. Then, stillness. Reyes' fingers curled into a fist. A breath. Cold air and scorched lungs. He stood. You don't understand humans, he said, voice low, steady. You think we break. But we burn. And he moved. Kesseth flinched too late. Rays slammed into him, drove him into the wall. The hum faltered, Kesseth's control slipping. They struggled, Kesseth clawing at Ray's mind, but Rays wasn't thinking. He was acting, every instinct honed from years of war. He drove a knee into Kesseth's gut, slammed his head back into stone, once, twice. The hum stopped. Kesseth sagged, dazed, breath ragged. You could have ruled, Kesseth gasped. I would have given you Earth. Rays didn't answer. He pulled his blade free. One strike. It was done. Later, as dawn broke over Valkaris, Rays stood in the throne room, blood still staining his hands. The court was silent. Watching. Waiting. The Emperor rose, eyes heavy. Is it finished? He asked. Rays nodded. It's finished. The Emperor looked out over the court, voice cold. Let this be known, no mind shall rule over mine. No fear shall silence truth. No one spoke. Rays turned, heading for the exit. Commander, the Emperor called. Rays paused. You've earned your place. Rays didn't look back. I didn't come for a place. I came to keep you alive. And then he was gone. Valkaris Prime was quieter in the days that followed. No proclamations were made. No monuments erected. Yet everyone knew something had changed. The shadows no longer whispered in the halls. The mind brood was gone, cleansed without fanfare, without trial. Their seats in the imperial court sat empty, and no one dared speak their names aloud. Rays Valoric hadn't been seen since the morning he walked out of the throne room. He hadn't vanished. He watched, from balconies above, from corners no one noticed. He stayed out of politics, out of ceremony. That wasn't his place. He was there for the man on the throne, not the ones bowing in front of it. The Emperor's rule held firm, now sharper, less tolerant of ambiguity. Those who once smirked behind veils and masks now chose silence. Every being in the court had seen the blood on the floor. And they remembered the look in Ray's eyes as he walked away, calm, sure, and utterly unimpressed. On the seventh day, the Emperor summoned him again. The chamber was empty. Just the two of them, standing beneath the great stained glass dome that filtered starlight into colors that didn't exist on Earth. You've been avoiding the spotlight, the Emperor said. I've been doing my job, Rays replied. The Emperor gestured to the quiet court beyond the doors. They fear you. As they should. They respect you. Rays shook his head. Not the same thing. The Emperor stepped closer, his tone shifting. You dismantled a coup, crushed an ancient bloodline, and held your ground when half the court prayed you'd fall. You could ask for anything. I don't want a throne. No. But they need to see what earned your place. A gesture. Even a title. Ray studied him for a moment, then looked up at the dome. You want to name me something? Fine. Call me what they already do. The Emperor's weapon. That's what I am. That's all I need to be. The Emperor nodded slowly. Very well. They stood in silence for a while, two men who'd seen too much, speaking without words. Finally, the Emperor said, Tell me something. Why did you stay? Ray's answer came without hesitation. Because chaos needs a leash. And you're the only one I've seen who can hold it without choking everyone. The Emperor smiled faintly. And what do you need? Space. A target. And time. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. They think I'm a monster, he said. The Emperor replied softly. Let them. It keeps us alive. Outside, the palace was bathed in soft light, the city below alive with activity, ignorant of how close it had come to ruin. Ray stood on a high balcony, watching the ships arc across the sky, wondering how many other courts, on how many other worlds, were rotting from the inside. Earth had taught him one thing: civilizations don't fall from war. They rot from comfort, from arrogance, from the illusion of permanence. A low voice stirred beside him. She would have hated what you've become. He didn't need to turn. The voice belonged to Commander Liz Corrin, one of the few who didn't flinch when speaking to him. She hated a lot of things, Reyes said. But she was right about one, Corrin replied. No empire lasts forever. No. But some deserve to last longer than others. She nodded and walked away. That evening, the court gathered again. Formal, slow, ceremonial, everything Reyes despised. The Emperor stood before them in full regalia, his voice echoing through the chamber. The court has long been protected by tradition, by foresight, by the strength of legacy. But today, I recognize something else. Something older than our bloodlines, older than the stars we orbit. He paused. Reyes remained at the back of the hall, arms folded, watching without expression. I recognize the strength of unpredictability, the power of choice, and the will to act when no one else will. He looked to Reyes. This man saved your emperor not with prophecy, nor lineage, but because he refused to stand idle. He is not of our kind. He does not speak our tongue. But he has earned more loyalty than any name etched in the stones of this court. The nobles remained still. From this day forward, Commander Valoric will stand as my final authority on security, internal and external. His word on threats to the throne will carry the weight of mine. The silence that followed was thicker than a battlefield. Reyes said nothing. He didn't need to. Later that night, as the lights dimmed across the city and the court returned to their chambers, the Emperor found Reyes standing alone at the edge of the landing platform. Are you staying? He asked. For now, Reyes replied. And after that? Reyes watched a freighter rise into the black, engines flaring like dying stars. When it's time to leave, he said, you'll know. The Emperor nodded once. As he walked away, Reyes remained still, hand resting lightly on the hilt of his blade. He wasn't a ruler. He wasn't a symbol. He was a warning. And that was enough.